Watch this.
Idaho has a history of what many would call domestic terrorism. What we don't have is a legal definition of domestic terrorism, but a bill to define it may just limit our current law against it. Another thing lawmakers are trying to define, or redefine, the U.S. Constitution. Today, we asked the governor about the Convention of States over some bacon and eggs.
Very proud. I love it. This is more important to me than the other varsity game.
Sports is a way to bring people together, and that's exactly what happened during the Special Olympics roundball tournament today. No surprise, it's a favorite event among students and staff. Every few years, there's a question that bubbles up in American politics. Should there be a special convention of the states to open up the Constitution for amendments? It's kind of a slippery slope, though, critics would say, because the effort to relaunch that is happening right now, and it's tomorrow coming up at the Idaho State House. Okay, so the question is, what does it take for a convention of states to kind of be called together to look at this? How does this play out, Joe?
Okay, so there are two big ways, Brian. Either 34 states or 2/3 of both houses in Congress, they can call for a constitutional amendment, and then 38 states would have to approve any amendments made to the Constitution. But let's get into this. At this point in time, 19 states have signed on to the idea of having a constitutional convention. Taking a look, 15 more states need to sign on for a convention to happen, and that includes Idaho. Here's a map for you, though, from the Convention of States Action Group, and states in green, they have already signed off on the idea. Blue states have legislation going right now, and Idaho will become a blue state tomorrow afternoon. Senate Concurrent Resolution 112 will ask Idaho lawmakers to sign on to the convention idea. Again, the purpose is to propose constitutional amendments. Specifically, this call is to restrain federal power. The key ideas in the resolution: impose fiscal restraints on the federal government, limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, and limit the terms of office for members of Congress. The Idaho resolution says that there is a crushing national debt through improper and imprudent spending, and that the federal government has invaded the legitimate roles of the states through the manipulative process of federal mandates, which they say are unfunded to a great extent. So yes, this is the balanced budget topic we're talking about here. And I asked Idaho Governor Brad Little this morning at the annual Idaho Press Club breakfast about this idea. And the governor touched on the calls for a balanced federal budget and if Congress could just fix this themselves, which they do have the power to do.
I have evolved over time because everybody said, well, Congress is finally going to figure this out. They're finally going to do something. I have reached the desperation phase. And of course, the theory is we're going to get every state we need but one, and then Congress is going to do the right thing. Count me skeptical about that, but I'll take it anyway. Power of the purse is what they control, but they don't have the fiscal discipline. Even if we get the growth of the annual deficit to zero, we've still got 33 trillion in existing, but they have got to do something. So anything that sends a signal, I'm all in.
Critics of the idea say opening the Constitution makes it vulnerable to short-sighted changes on social issues. I asked Governor Little about this concept.
I worry that the concern about any of those issues would be a poison pill to the budget issue. And that's why I want it to be, and there's arguments that you can't control it when you get there. They'll runaway convention. But if every state sends all their delegates with a commitment to have it done on one thing, we can get there.
So tomorrow afternoon, the idea will be pitched in a Senate committee. Efforts like this, Brian, that have failed in years past here in the state of Idaho, noticeably in 2016, 2018. And this will again be pitched tomorrow in a Senate committee. 15 more states, including Idaho, are needed to sign on for this convention of states. And again, the proponents of it, we heard the proponents of it, but again, the critics say that they're worried that if you open up the Constitution, what if you start putting social issues in there? Ideas on abortion, ideas on LGBTQ rights, ideas on firearms, and it goes both ways. Democrats have ideas, Republicans have other ideas, so we'll see. Will this happen? Who knows, but it is a big topic to talk about.
There's some people who know because I think this has been going on since the Reagan administration. I think 81 when we first broke that $1 trillion barrier when it comes to national debt and the balanced budget. So it's been talked about a lot. And here we are in 2023, 40 years plus years since? Nothing
Yeah,
yet.
and of note, in 2013, a real concerted push was made kind of by Republican states. So 10 years later, they're still working on it.
Tea Party movement.
There you go.
All right. Thank you very much, Joe. Well, 2 historic pools might get funding approved in less than an hour coming up at the Boise City Council meeting. Morgan Romero has details on what that money would be used for and a whole lot more in today's 411.
The U.S. Senate passed a supplemental aid bill this morning, 70-29. The bill calls for $95 billion in aid to Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan. The bill now goes to the House, where many House Republicans are opposed to further aid to Ukraine. Idaho Senators Jim Risch and Mike Crapo released a statement after the bill passed, saying, quote, "The United States cannot be the policeman of the world, nor can we engage in every conflict, which is why we must support allies who will stand with us in what is a very dangerous time globally. Although this legislation is not what we would have drafted, it is a strong bill that makes Idaho and America safer, our first responsibility."
And we did hear from the majority of those that we engaged with that they would like to see the pools brought up to city code.
And happening at 6 tonight at Boise City Hall, City Council is deciding to approve $160,000 to resume planning efforts for the Lowell and South pools. The pools have been around since the 1950s, but they've been closed since 2020 because of COVID and ADA assessments. The money will be used to, quote, update potential designs and cost estimates for both pools. That could take up to 4 months. Initially, the estimate was $2.4 million to bring each pool up to code. You can get free food tomorrow. The free food box giveaway is from 11 to 2:30 or until the food runs out at the Idaho Center in Nampa. The food is free, no questions asked, and there are no requirements to receive it. And that's the 411 on the 208. I'm Morgan Romero.
Yeah, I'm just looking outside, and that little bit of sunshine that we have right now drove it up to 49 degrees. So almost 50 degrees for this afternoon. 48 for Nampa. You see Mountain Home at 47 to 46 degrees for Twin Falls. There's Ontario's high, which was up to 54 degrees today. Pretty nice. What's happening outside? Well, if you had a chance to see a sprinkle, as you can see moving around the valley, there's just a few spots, pretty much around the foothills, right along through there, and that's all we're really seeing at this time. As we go up just a little bit higher, you can see that the storm system is coming in from Northern California, and it's eventually going to work its way over here to the Southwest Valley. Clouds will increase overnight, and the chance of rain showers develops basically tomorrow afternoon. So you've got this storm system that's coming in for tomorrow, and then this storm system that's coming in behind it, which is likely Saturday. We're going to just one after the other. This one, we do have a winter storm warning that's in effect because of some heavy snow that could come down some of the mountain locations. Could be anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of snow, and then as much as 12 inches of snow on some of the mountain peaks. So that's what's heading our way. Let's take a look at some of that snow. If you look up here just toward mountain areas, by Thursday, late tomorrow night, this could be the snow in Haley, Stanley, as well as McCall. As we continue with the storm, there it is. Some spots could be fairly heavier. So we're looking at anywhere from about 4 to 8 inches in some locations. So you could be looking at the 4 in some spots, maybe a little bit more in others. And then as we talk about rain showers here for the valley, our rain showers are going to be working their way up to about 1/4 of an inch or so. And as you look at this, you'll see here's the rain. So we start out from tonight, and it continues running through tomorrow. And then you'll see about 6:30 in the morning, not much of anything happening. But by about midday, rain begins, and we get smaller amounts by later afternoon into the evening. And then late tomorrow night into early Thursday morning, that's when we're going to be receiving the heavier part of the rain. As you see, 1/2 inch for Twin Falls and Boise, with about as far as the rain is concerned, close to 1/2 inch. So that's going to keep the temperatures down as you see along through here. As you get into Friday, there's a chance of some showers on Saturday, but even then 55 degrees. Some showers toward next week as well, and most of your high temperatures next week could be into the mid-50s.
You know, public interest and attendance are a couple of benchmarks we use to judge the importance of a sporting event. Because professionally, that's where the money is, right? Let's take, for example, the Super Bowl. That alone claimed 123 million viewers over this past weekend, making it the most watched telecast in U.S. history. But the moments in sports that may matter most, they aren't covered with 4-hour pregame shows and dozens of television cameras capturing every angle with ticket prices in the thousands of dollars. No, these moments, they are priceless, which is why a free basketball tournament at Skyview High School is one of the most valuable tickets in town. Here's Andrew Bartline.
It's been said many times over, you get what you pay for.
That basket's good for Joey!
But for families, friends, and the Skyview student section, this game breaks the mold. An invaluable experience, free of charge. Laura Hansen films every second of every game.
I do it in the varsity game too.
Here,
Let's go!
the officials won't disrupt pace of play.
Hockey substitutions into the ballgame.
The players won't call an ISO.
Here, dribble it!
And the fans won't need a reminder years later to remember.
There she goes.
Because the crowd
On the way!
isn't missing a moment. 4 Treasure Valley schools competing for one Special Olympics tournament title.
We've been watching all the games.
Christine Harper's here
Yeah.
for her daughter,
They've won all of them.
though the score will only be a footnote.
It doesn't matter the points. They're just having a blast, and everybody gets to play. It's wonderful.
The moments matter most.
As they left the court, he looked over at us just to say, like, Mom and Dad, I just did it. Did you see that?
Everyone saw it. Because wouldn't you know it, not a single kid's face is buried in their phone. And the athletes have an idea why.
The beef.
Fans dig the long ball.
The 3 is always.
2 general education students organize the floor,
Shoot it!
while the following 3 players
Let's go!
make each and every play. And today, Laura's son is just a helper. He won't make even a second of this highlight reel.
Very proud. I love it. This is more important to me than the other varsity game.
She says there's a good life lesson
Time out on the floor.
in sharing the spotlight
Let's go! LSU!
and a lifetime memory in taking the floor.
Oh, okay, go play defense. Come on.
It's a fun day.
One that won't get etched in perpetuity.
Asher on the dribble.
You ready to score?
But most of us don't write down the moments
Go, Wildcats.
we know
Shoot it! Shoot it!
we'll never forget.
Up and in by Nathan at the buzzer.
Good job, guys.
You'll often hear this referred to as unified sports. The Idaho High School Athletics Association recognizes these sort of events where a few general students at the school, they will play alongside students who are enrolled in special education classes. So the split is 2 to 3, along with other players on the floor. They sort of help the pace of play. But a lot of the players, Brian, the interesting piece I learned today, play like on the varsity basketball team. So the mom we saw with the phone, her son plays on the varsity team. and the players that are enrolled in special education classes will like recruit people at school they want to play with. So they go to the varsity basketball team like, hey, you should play with us.
We want you on our team.
And she was really happy, honored might be the right word.
Yeah.
I'm not honored that her son said, yes, I want to do this. So she was excited to be out there and film.
Well, to even be asked for one of those players to come up and say, we want you to help us out and be on our team, that's quite an honor. I've been to a couple of those. I've seen a couple of them. There's no better sportsmanship than you see on the floor. Regardless of which team they're on, they're cheering each other on, they're helping each other out. It's just, as you said, the entire stands and on the court, grins ear to ear.
Yeah, and even if you do recruit some of the varsity guys, wouldn't help you out as much as you think. They're pretty nice out there. They kind of just orchestrate pace of play, but hand it off, pass it off, and someone hit a huge three. I missed it, and I'm disappointed. A Skyview player drained a three, and he had to be like a yard behind the three-point line. The place went berserk.
Because they shot a lot of them.
They did shoot a lot of
That's
threes.
amazing. Gotta shoot. Can't make it if you don't shoot.
Can't make it if you don't shoot. That's right.
Thanks, Andrew. Great. If you were asked to define domestic terrorism, could you do that? Could you come up with a couple examples? Well, if your first thought was Timothy McVeigh and the Oklahoma City bombing of the Federal Building, you wouldn't be alone. What you may not know, though, is domestic terrorism does not have a definition in Idaho code. A Senate bill making its way through the State House hopes to change that, though, by changing Idaho's current anti-terrorism law. But Senate Bill 1220 would render our existing terrorist act useless, according to one of the men who helped craft it decades ago.
It stands alone and hidden by the trees.
White supremacy first showed itself as an organized idea in Idaho in the 1970s, with the formation of the Aryan Nations compound outside Coeur d'Alene.
They were drawing in all kinds of dangerous trash.
It wouldn't be long before they became destructive. First, in 1984, two members of The Order, also known as the Silent Brotherhood, planted a bomb in the crawl space under the kitchen of the Ahavath Israel Synagogue. Nobody was hurt, but it caused thousands of dollars in damage. Then 2 years later, in North Idaho, another series of bombings in September of 1986. A violent trend was underway, which is why Idaho's law enforcement,
Yeah, back in 1987.
like former State Attorney General Jim Jones, wanted a way to be tougher on domestic terrorists. Why?
Bill Wasmuth's house had been bombed.
Bill Wasmuth, the Coeur d'Alene Catholic priest at the forefront of organizing human rights rallies and protesting Aryan Nations gatherings, had a pipe bomb explode just outside his back door on September 15, 1986. He wasn't hurt, but Jones says the message was clear.
You know, it was a clear intimidation tactic by the Aryan Nations. And we didn't have a statute that was really adequate to address it, you know, something with a real heavy penalty.
So Jones helped draft a bill that would specifically target the use of terrorist tactics. But weren't threats of violence and actual bombings already a crime in the Gem State?
It wasn't if you didn't kill somebody. You know, if you just set off a bomb in the city limits, even though you were trying to intimidate the population, it wasn't something that could get you a life sentence.
They called it the Terrorist Control Act, and anyone convicted of conspiring with another person to hurt, threaten, oppress, or intimidate could be sent to prison for life.
It was regarded as one of the very first domestic terrorism bills, and it sent out the message, we ain't putting up with you terrorists.
But Jones is worried today's lawmakers might take the teeth out of Idaho's anti-terrorist law.
Senate Bill 1220 is commonly known as the Domestic Terrorism Bill, but it really is a due process bill. Common, ordinary Idahoans are being unfairly labeled and tagged as domestic terrorists.
Senate Bill 1220 hopes to define domestic terrorism as activities done in cooperation with any foreign terrorist organization as defined by federal agencies.
In the absence of a federal congressionally authorized definition of domestic terrorist, everyone is making up their own definition.
That's your biggest issue with the bill, right? It's the rephrasing of what is domestic terrorism.
Right. Adding the requirement that the prosecutor prove that this was done in conjunction with one of those 70 organizations. Those guys are not going to support a bombing here in Boise. And that makes it, you can't get a conviction.
If we do not tie the definition of domestic terrorist to an FTO, ordinary citizens will continue to be targeted.
Representative Doug Pickett said this bill would also prevent state and local agencies from acting on false accusations.
Do you happen to have a disagreement with your neighbor? You better watch out. He may rat you out as a terrorist on the National Terrorist Hotline that was set up during the Obama administration.
Supporters point to dust-ups at school boards over the last few years as evidence this is happening today.
This past year, I had the unfortunate experience of being the target of my school board chair's rancor, and now I worry that she may have turned my name into the FBI and added me to that domestic terrorism threat tag.
Except USA Today looked into this 3 years ago, and based on an email from the FBI, such tags will only be applied to investigate and assess threats directed against school officials. The FBI said it does not investigate parents who simply speak out at school board meetings.
It's just a matter that it would never be used to go after school patrons or school boards or anything like that. That's crazy. And if school patrons got together, 2 or more of them, and threatened violence that would be harmful to human life and was a violation of Idaho law for the purpose of intimidating or coercing the population, they ought to be prosecuted.
Jim Jones worries that this would just render that law, the current law, useless. Now, used as evidence as the national terrorist screening data, which has grown from 120,000 in 2003 to 2 million in 2023, as put forth by Representative Pickett today. But even he admits most of those on that list are foreigners. As for the argument parents who protest at school board meetings are being labeled and investigated as domestic terrorists by the Department of Justice, which you heard a lot of during debate over this bill, both in testimony today and by the bill's sponsor, that'd be Senator Kelly Anthon, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland never labeled them as domestic terrorists, and he said he supports parents' First Amendment rights. All right, let's get to your comments here on this Tuesday. Like this one from Larry, who'd like to see only one thing change when it comes to the Constitution. Should we have a convention of states to do that? Only one part, possibly change the Constitution. That's term and age limits. That's according to Larry. Idaho legislature has difficulty running Idaho's issues without creating continuous litigation. Now they want to run the federal government. Apparently gerrymandering and voter suppression is not enough, says Robert. State-driven Constitution challenge is nothing more than a thinly veiled attempt to dissolve the United States, per Steve Bannon and the Freedom Foundation. Current system provides adequate remedies for we the people. And as you mentioned, it's been going on since the early 80s. Little's comments on the debt. Largest increase in the national debt in recent years was due to the GOP tax cut under Trump, supported by all of Idaho's delegation, says Jack. I did look it up. Obviously, FDR is at the top of that list. Trump comes in at number 8. And in between there's Obama at 64%, and then there's Reagan, both Bushes, and Nixon when it comes to increasing our national debt based on percentage. Once again, our state legislators are trying to fix something that doesn't need fixed. Leave the domestic terrorist laws alone. Why do we keep electing people like this? Asked Kurt in Nampa. I'm going to end on this one because John makes a good point. Maybe we should send our legislators to Skyview to see what humanity is really all about. It's a great idea.